Hello. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress Kentucky. Thank you so much for joining us to discuss the breaking Kentucky political news of the week, with a deep dive into the weakest of the weekly news. All those weeks have been spelled W-E-A-K, just so you know. You might not have heard that, but I was saying that. This is how the Kentucky GOP has responded to the fact that its presumptive presidential nominee will be, as determined by an agreed-upon jury, a convicted felon. Spoiler, folks, this is not Profiles in Courage. Then we're going to bring on Blair Hayden, the executive director of a really fantastic organization, Emerge Kentucky, a group that helps Democratic women run and win political office in our fair commonwealth. Really important work to shift the political landscape. And then finally, we're going to close out with an important call to action focused on public education. But first, are you ready to help turn Kentucky purple? Let's think back a few Novembers, shall we? If you remember last November, we reelected Andy Beshear, which was a great moment for our Commonwealth. The November before that, we rejected an effort to strip abortion protections from our state constitution. November shows that when push comes to shove, folks in Kentucky come together for a kinder, compassionate Commonwealth. Unfortunately, there are still supermajorities in Frankfort that just don't care about making regular folks' lives better. And they are prioritizing giving tax cuts to rich folks and sending whatever's left over to private schools. It's clear there's still lots of work to do in our state to win better electoral outcomes for our Commonwealth. And between now and this November, 153 days from now, we're going to be focused on just that. And we hope you'll support Progress Kentucky in our campaign for a more compassionate Commonwealth. Please make a contribution right now via our secure online website. Just act blue to help turn Kentucky purple. $5, $50, $500. It all adds up. It all makes a difference. And it all helps us create a better Kentucky. So let's now check in with our co-hosts. Let us know who you are, where you are. Exciting day today. We span the state, I think, in to a degree. Let us know what you're protesting today. You there on the internet watching along? We mean you as well. Let's hear what you're protesting today. Feel free to put that in the chat while we are sharing ours. I'm Aaron. I'm coming to you from Childsburg in Lexington, Kentucky. A sea of vinyl siding, folks. A sea of beige vinyl siding out here in Lexington, in Childsburg in Lexington. And my protest sign says, "Our democracy deserves better." It's a little vague, I know. But I think, as we talk about this GOP response to the jury finding Trump guilty, I think it all kind of becomes clear. But now let's check in with our co-host, Kimberly. Kimberly, are you there?
I sure am, Aaron. How are you doing today?
Awesome.
Yes, I'm coming to you live from Louisville, Kentucky, Jefferson County, the largest county in Kentucky. And I'm also coming to you as a proud member of the Alpha Kappa Alpha Incorporated sorority. Our vice president, Madam Vice President, is an AKA like myself. I know you haven't heard that for a while, Aaron. However, my protest sign says today, because some people call me Sister Soldier as well, and I'm going to say, Black folks, don't vote for Trump because you got about $2,800 3 years ago.
Nice. Yeah, that's a nice callback. That's what you've been hearing, is what you're saying?
Yeah, I'm telling you, it's almost I'm almost hysterically fearful because so many people are like, oh yeah, he gave us money. Biden didn't give us anything. Like, come on, you guys. $2,800 is going to make you vote for that convicted felon, that man. Come on, let's get real.
Yikes. All right. Well, thank you on sharing that terrifying news. Dr. Clardy, are you there? You are muted. You are muted, sir, because somebody has to do it.
Excellent. All right. Thank you. Yes, I'm broadcasting live from Murray, Kentucky, and my protest sign says, "Shame on you, Senate Republicans." Senate Republicans blocked a bill today allowing women access to contraception. The White House has issued a strong statement against this. And I'm issuing here again the same call that I've been making over the last several appearances on Kernels of Truth. The Kentucky Democratic Party needs to take this issue very seriously, whether we're talking about access to reproductive rights or access to contraception or right of privacy. Women's lives are on the line. Women's lives will be ruined by some of these decisions, period, and women will die. And so I urge the Kentucky Democratic Party to take this on as a major issue in 2024, and let's fight to reverse Roe.
Yeah. Amen. I think there's not a more important issue to ensure like the public gets what's at stake in this election, that they put it on the ballot. You know, it's you got to read between the lines to see it on the ballot, right? It's not Amendment 2 from 2 years ago when it was very clearly on the ballot. But you know, as I've said before, I think it's a very important issue. I think it wins in Kentucky, but you just need to explain people how it's on the ballot, because it's not clear. You got to squint a little bit, right? But I do think, you know, I doubt that things have changed so much that, you know, Biden's like threatening to win Kentucky, right? I don't know, like, no matter how much kind of abortion is front and center, I don't think that that's in the kind of realm of the possible. But, you know, I could be surprised. Right. I'm happy to be surprised. But I do think that people really like Andy, that Andy put, you know, abortion front and center in his election. And actually, just as a teaser for next week, we are going to be hearing from Hadley Duvall, who is the woman who was in the ad that told her heroic survivor story and put abortion in the conversation for that election, made Dan Cameron kind of go on defense, I think, on how horrible his record had been on abortion access, like all Republicans basically in Kentucky. So I think, you know, you need to tell people the story of why their state house rep, you know, matters, right? Some guy that they met at the county fair and thinks is a nice guy, and I'm sure he's not, you know, taking away abortion access, but if he's a Republican, he is, right? And that's, I think, what we need to really underscore for people, that all the horrible things that you're hearing other states want to do on abortion, you know, kind of pushing the envelope, you know, making it a crime like they're doing in Texas, or proposing in Texas, you know, doing things to restrict access to in vitro fertilization, restricting access to, you know, other reproductive health care and contraception. You know, that stuff's all on the table in Kentucky. And unfortunately, there's basically nothing the governor can do about it right now, because they can overcome all of his vetoes. So we need to, you know, shift enough seats in the legislature that he can veto their worst ideas and they can't overcome his veto, right? And that's going to take some work.
And Tip O'Neill said it better than anybody. Tip O'Neill said it better than anyone ever could. All politics is local. And so this has to be fought on the ground in this Commonwealth, in this election, as you said, Aaron, district by district by district.
Yeah. And I think there's a big gap in, like, you know, who represents who in Kentucky, right? There's a bunch of state houses that Andy won those state houses, but right now, you know, there's a Republican in that seat, right? So if we can just connect the dots for people and tell them so clearly, like, look, if you want abortion access and reproductive justice for, you know, for your family, for your kids, for, you know, for people you care about, because this is real healthcare that is going away in our state because of our horribly restrictive laws. If you want them to have the ability to have full reproductive health care, we've got to get rid of these guys. We really have to. And wherever there's that, you know, that difference between the district Andy won and the, you know, a Republican sitting in that district, we need to put our target on them. And I'm with you, Dr. Clardy. I think the Kentucky, you know, Democratic Party needs to, like, sound the alarm and make sure everyone understands what's at stake in this election. And hopefully they will. But yeah, I know that smart politicians are making it putting it front and center in their races. But, you know, it's hard to break through in these, like, these state rep races, right? It's hard to get attention. It's hard to make people understand kind of who's who and who's running for what and what they stand for. So it's going to take a concentrated, concerted, resourced effort for sure. So this is, like, I'm with you. We can talk about this every week. I think we might turn off our viewers if, like, we talk about it every week without fail, but I think we should come back to it frequently, because it's really important. As I said before, like, how many days? 153 days. We got our work to do. All right, so let's do news of the week.
Those two. They'll be here before you know it.
Yeah, no, stuff comes quick for sure. All right, so we're gonna do kind of a collaborative story for story number one, the news of the week. You know it. We're proud of it. This is a Kentucky political news story. But the biggest news story, political news story in the world right now, I would argue, is that President Trump, of course, former President Trump, the presumptive nominee for the Kentucky or for the GOP, is now a convicted felon. Right, he's been found guilty, 34 counts, and that's the biggest story in the universe right now, I think, politically. So what we want to do is talk about it from the Kentucky perspective. Like, what did Kentucky's representatives say about this guilty verdict, and how are they responding to kind of justice being done, right? So all right, I'm going to just run through a couple of folks, and then we're going to turn to our co-host to talk about their representatives and how they responded. So first, Representative Brett Guthrie in the 2nd District. He leaned all in on Team Trump. He said this was a baseless trial brought by a partisan hack prosecutor solely to stop President Trump from regaining the White House. The kangaroo court is an insult to the American justice system, very foundation of our constitutional democracy, an outlandish abuse of our criminal justice system. Gross. Thomas Massey said guilty on 34 counts, but no underlying crime. Partisan hacks serving as judges, investigators, and prosecutors have turned our legal system into a farce at both the state and federal level. Interesting. Federal level? Where's the federal law that's a farce? This is a state. This is actually not even a state court. This was a municipal court, right? This was New York City that did this. So he doesn't really understand how the legal system works, apparently. Trump's trial was this is Hal Rogers. Hal Rogers, woken from his medically induced coma, I suppose. Old man, very, very old man, has been in that district forever and will be there probably until he dies, because he got challenged by like 3 or 4 different Republicans in the primary and just stomped them all. So Hal Rogers, sexist, racist, Hal Rogers. Trump's trial was an outrage and deeply unfair. It's a political travesty and will be reversed on appeal. Weaponization of our courts for political gain. Biden forces claim victory, but it will backfire and elect Trump. They claim they won this battle, but we will win the war, says Hal Rogers, right? So that's the 3 reps that are not represented in this conversation. And then we're going to turn to our co-host to discuss theirs and maybe some other folks too. So Dr. Clardy, who do you want to share with us?
Well, first, this is not This is not the Republican Party of the past. This is not the Republican Party that repudiated Nixon and vindicated the rule of law. So, for example, the Republican Party of Kentucky posted a statement Thursday night blaming the Biden administration for Trump's prosecution and conviction, saying that the overwhelming majority of Kentuckians stand with President Trump. Oh, boy. Okay. The Republican Party of Kentucky accused the Biden administration of strategically placing the case in, quote, one of the most liberal legal venues in the country, even though Trump was indicted by a grand jury in Manhattan and the case was brought against him by Alvin Bragg, the elected district attorney for Manhattan's district. Now, folks, let me say, before I quote my Congressman Jamie Comer, let me just say, please don't blame me. I live in Comer's district. I voted for Jimmy Osbrooks. I will vote for Aaron Marshall. I voted for Sam Gaskins and Paul Walker, who's a friend of mine. So him being up there is not my fault. Okay, with that said, Congressman Jamie Comer of the 1st Congressional District and the fearless leader of the House Oversight Committee said, "Today is a sad day for all Americans. The verdict in New York is another example of Democrats being relentless in their pursuit to weaponize the courts, abuse America's judicial system, and target President Joe Biden's political opposition. One thing is clear: Democrats are afraid to face Donald Trump. Americans will make their voices heard this November." And I'm so surprised that he did not mention Hunter Biden, as he always calls him. He didn't get to stick that in there this time. But listen, yes, he's an embarrassment. Comer is, and this quote is an example of that.
Yeah, he had his chance to really kind of go after Hunter Biden, and he did it for months and months and months, right? And now he's turned his attention to Dr. Fauci for a while, right? And spent most of the week going after Dr. Fauci, which is just a travesty. And yeah, just that guy. No one blames you, Dr. Clardy, but
committee.
No one blames you for Jamie Comer, but are you sure there's nothing you can do about it? It's just like, really, that guy, what an embarrassment to the state.
I'm going to have to go door to door on my hands and knees and say, please, let's get rid of this guy. I don't mind doing that. We want to get Aaron Marshall elected to Congress in November. That's going to be the only way to stop this buffoon.
Yeah, talk about putting abortion front and center. Aaron is clearly making that issue, the issue of choice, a very, very significant issue in her race. If you haven't seen it, we had her on the show. She's fantastic. And, I think,
yes,
despite the fact that she lives in Frankfurt, which is, I think, about, 3 hours away from where you live, Dr. Clardy, I think she would be a wonderful representative of that stupid shaped district. But yeah, it is so gerrymandered.
Yeah.
Anyway, all right. So that was your statements. Kimberly, how about you? Who are you going to share with us?
Let me say this to you. I have some better news to report from my U.S. representative, Congressman Morgan McGarvey, my dear friend, wonderful, above board guy that's fighting for Kentuckians in Washington. He said, and quote, "A New York jury has spoken. Donald Trump is the first former president to be convicted of a felony, 34 to be exact. In America, no one's above the law. Donald Trump is now a convicted felon. He is also the presumptive Republican nominee for president, and he is unfit to serve in any public office, especially president of the United States." And then, unfortunately, the senator from Louisville, Senator Republican leader Mitch McConnell, shortly before 9 p.m. on Thursday on Twitter, he most definitely made a statement in saying these charges never should have been brought in the first place. I expect the conviction to be overturned on an appeal. And then the court jester, I should call him, U.S. Senator Rand Paul on Twitter said, "How long can our republic survive one partisan? Once partisans have taken over the judicial process, this verdict will tragically undermine Americans' confidence in impartial justice. A sad day for America." Aaron and Dr. Clardy, I like to say it's very much a sad day in America when elected officials, lawmakers that get money from the taxes that we pay, have these type of ideas, excluding, of course, Morgan McGarvey, whom everyone loves because he's really about the right thing. And he's also running this time, and he does have Republican opposition. So Rand Paul and Mitch McConnell, he's on the way out anyway, so we really don't care. But Rand Paul, you need to get the court jester out. He's not doing anything specific for Kentuckians. And as far the president of the United States of America should always be held to the highest degree. And when you have a U.S. president that is a convicted felon, 34 counts, I do believe in second chances, but not for this buffoon. And not only that, have you guys, Dr. Clardy, Aaron, have you all thought about once he is installed as the nominee at the Republican National Convention, he will therefore get all of our secrets again. Nothing will be withheld from him. And as he told
That's right.
secrets before, he will tell secrets now for money. He is a criminal. He's been a criminal. Most people are just finding out. So he cannot be president. This is horrible. This is horrible.
It poses a significant national security. Sorry, Kim. I'm saying it just poses a significant national security threat. The president of the United States, who's running for president of the United States, is going to be getting classified information, and we know how reckless he was with that after he left office. And while he was in office, he's going to get those classified briefings at the end of that convention. And if, God forbid, he is elected, it will undermine any of our moral standing that we have in the conduct of foreign policy.
But
this is a very dangerous thing.
It's not even just that. As my daughter is an intelligence officer in the Air Force, and I talked to her about unclassified information, and the one thing that she explained to me when these situations happened before, when he told Russia, yes, the Israelis, they told us X, Y, and Z, and everybody knows Israel is like number one in intel, okay? And
yes,
everybody looks at us like we're crazy, but it goes beyond how everybody's looking at us. It goes beyond that. He is giving secrets away that may have taken 10 to 20 years to produce by many hundreds of channels. And then in a split second, he's sharing this information. What are we going to do to stay safe?
All right, so I don't dispute any of that. I feel like we've gone a little bit far afield of our discussion the guy's horrible. He's a risk. We remember that people should remember the chaos that was his 4 years of the presidency. His friends and co-conspirators are now being charged in other crimes, right? I think Wisconsin was just charged, like Arizona, all these fake elector schemes are being charged. The guy is a criminal. He ran a criminal enterprise, and we're finally catching him on one thing. Unfortunately, the Supreme Court is going to hold up probably the other major crimes, the classified documents, and trying actively to steal them, right? And then also the whole January 6th, effort to overturn the election. That's all held up because Supreme Court's in the bag for they're slow walking. And I don't think they're going to give him like absolute immunity, but they're absolutely slow walking their decision so that he can't be prosecuted with the other trials, the other cases before the election, right? So this is the case we get. This was the one that people thought was kind of the less significant, although catch and kill stories, making illegal business payments to obfuscate what those were. I think it's real, and I don't think the jury screwed up. The jury did the right thing. Was there political elements to this prosecution? I kind of think, yeah, probably. I mean, I think if Trump was a normal human, he probably would have just taken a plea. But because he's not a normal human, he never entered the conversation about a plea deal. And this probably could have been downgraded from a criminal charge. But he didn't want to ever do that because he could never admit any of it was real, right? Even though they had him dead to rights completely. When Pecker turned on him, when Picker flipped on him, Cohen flipped on him, he was done for. But of course, he could not acknowledge that because he's a psychopath, right? So here's what we got. This is the case we're left with. The other ones will not proceed. I'm a betting man. I'm happy to wager on that. This is the one we've seen. I think it's not going to help him. I don't think people want a convicted felon to be the president. The 30% of Americans that are MAGA extremists, like they don't care. They're like going to, give him more money and whatever. But those like the murky middle people that he needs to win because he's never had a real majority. They're not going to go for a convicted felon. This doesn't help.
Aaron, can I say something?
Of course.
Really quickly. You know what? Those of us that are sane and have some type of normalcy in the way that we think and go about our day, yeah, we don't want a president like that. He should be held to a higher standard. But it does affect us in Kentucky. It makes the Republican Party in Frankfort feel more emboldened to do worse and to be criminalistic with it, is what my fear is right here in Kentucky. And like Dr. Clardy said, this is not the Republican Party of 10 years ago, not even, you know, 20 years ago. This is not the same Republican Party. This is the party of Trump, and everybody just follows right behind him. And you know what? Maybe people might not think so much about this, but we really need to reach out to every brother and sister that we know and tell them not to vote, no matter what nationality, color, age, gender, it doesn't matter. Because if he becomes president of the United States again, it will be mayhem. And I am moving to Portugal. I told you all last time, they like Black people in Portugal. I told you all that. I'm moving.
All right, so I want to wrap it up because I've got 3 more responses I want to target. One of them is from my representative, which again, shameful, much like our friend Dr. Clardy. I have nothing to do with this man's election. I have voted against him as many times as humanly possible. I actually took a paycheck to work against him. It didn't work out. And then otherwise I've written in names to try to beat the guy, and he just sticks around, the empty suit, banker Barr, Andy Barr from the 6th district. His statement in response was, I think, the man's a lawyer, right? So he should understand how the law works. And he doesn't come off as a moron. I've spent time with him, but what his statement is like, it's so devoid of kind of any grounded reality. It's just staggering. So his statement is, a corrupt New York district attorney, how is he corrupt? We don't know, doesn't say, pursued this conviction through a sham trial. It was a sham trial because why? The jury didn't think it was a sham. The president's defense was pretty bad, so maybe that was the sham part. The sham trial of President Trump, marked by outrageous and unconstitutional tactics. I'm not sure what was outrageous or unconstitutional, right? It was really just a trial. It won't stop me and millions of Americans from acquitting the president of these politically motivated charges and sending him back to the White House in November. After 4 years of record high inflation, open borders, and foreign policy disasters, Joe Biden has another 5 months before he'll be sentenced to permanent retirement by the American people. So that one stuck in my craw as just like outrageous and kind of just dangerous. Like, what are you saying? This is... Listen, you're encouraging this Republican base to dismiss our legal system in a way that you would think, as an attorney who was an officer of the court, would see some value in. But no, he does not seem to. So really sad, really unfortunate. We did have Randy Cravens, who of course has won the Democratic primary. He'll be taking on Andy Barr. I think he had a great response. He sent out an official response, which we'll put in the chat. Justice has been done. Former President Donald J. Trump has been convicted of 34 felony counts by a jury of his peers in the state of New York. Let's see. And I think, you got it on the screen, Nate? Did we pop it up? Because I think we have that one there. The Craven's response to Andy Barr. So his short version on Twitter, he was convicted by a jury of his peers. You'll be voted out by a jury of yours. The people of Kentucky will see you at the polls in November. I like that, kind of short and punchy. But what I liked even better was the response from Whitney Westerfield, who of course was a Republican in the legislature. He's no longer. He's retired from it. He's decided he's done with the clown show there. He said in response to Andy Barr, disappointed in this statement, Congressman. The courts function as they should, and a jury decided the outcome for better or worse. We absolutely cannot risk further eroding confidence in our justice system. I tell you what, that's a Republican. That's a Kentucky Republican that said that. Guys, what do you think of Andy Barr's statement and then Whitney Westerfield's response?
At least he had the courage to say what people should be saying about this case, that the courts work, the American system of justice in this particular case worked very well. They focused on the facts and the law. Donald Trump politicized this when he started referring to Judge Merchan as corrupt and Alvin Bragg as a hack. He was the one that made this political. But the courts have spoken, and we will find out in July what President Trump's fate will be. So yes, I agree with Mr. Westerfield on this particular matter. He's saying what a lot of Republicans should be out saying instead of the garbage that we're hearing from the right.
For sure. Yeah, we've referenced that guy on, like, I don't know, 3 shows in a row or something. I feel like we got to reach out and see if he'll be willing to come on the show, because he just seems like, man, that guy seems rational. We got to ask him what's wrong with him or what's wrong with his party, because they don't seem to be in agreement. All right, so we've gone long. We're gonna move now into our interview, which really excited to bring to you. Thank you so much, Kimberly and Dr. Clardy, for sharing your views on this. I will just say, I actually am going to agree with some of the Republican responses. I think it's a sad day. I think it was a sad day in our country that our former president was found guilty of all these things that he clearly did. Right? That's sad that that's the guy that we elected to be president, and that's how he behaved. And I feel like we should learn some lessons from that, as an electorate, because we don't really deserve those sad days. But if you make those types of decisions as an electorate, then you kind of deserve those outcomes. But all right. Speaking of the electorate and how we get better candidates to be represented by our fair state. So we have got with us tonight Blair Hayden, who is the executive director of Emerge Kentucky. Emerge Kentucky, a fantastic organization that I've been aware of, I think pretty much the entire time I've been involved with politics in Kentucky, really doing important work to elect Democratic women to office, help equip them to run for office, and then give them the tools they need to be effective candidates and get in there and to bring their values and their views to whatever office they're running for. Because I don't think it's just the state house. But Blair, thank you so much for joining us. How are you doing today?
I'm great, Aaron. Thank you so much for having me. And it's been a pleasure listening to Dr. Clardy and you and Kim and being with you all. So many comments I could have.
I know. I feel like you would be probably a highly appropriate co-host at some point. So I think that there's I appreciate your views, and I wish we could just have you for the whole show. But let's dig in a little bit on what Emerge Kentucky is. I've really been interested in having Emerge on the show for some time, but if our viewers aren't completely familiar with the organization, can you describe what you do and why and how?
Sure, and I'm going to try to keep it short. We train Democratic women to run for office and win, and we're part of a national organization, and we were founded here in Kentucky in 2009, and we were one of the early states. I'll say one good thing about Donald Trump. When he was elected as president, we quickly gained other southern states like North Carolina, South Carolina, Louisiana, Alabama, Tennessee, and women started coming out of the woodwork and stepping up to get trained to run for office and win. So we do a training solely on the skills it takes to run an effective campaign and win.
Awesome. From the Women's March to women running, I guess.
Right.
Awesome. I think Kimberly's got a question for you. You might be muted.
I'm not muted. Dr. Clardy, he's taking over for the mute king now, so it's not on me. Blair, what's going on, young lady? Hey, I'm going to tell you all a fact you don't even know about her. She can dance, y'all. She can dance. Yeah, we were at the Window 4 dinner, and then at the Young Democrats after party, she was on the floor cutting up. So my question is, Blair, right now, and it might not be a fair question, I don't know, but as your Emerge Kentucky, not Emerge, I can't say this word. Who wrote this copy? Who wrote this copy? Because I can't. What is it? The Chiapas. What is that?
Chiapas. The Mexican
okay.
state.
I barely could count 1 to 10 in Spanish. Okay, thank you. But it seems like the U.S. is lagging other nations in electing women. And that is so true. In Mexico, they now have a woman president. and they have made incredible gains in equal representation in federal government elections. Whereas in the US, women have just 12 or 50 governors and 28% of Congress, whereas Mexico's legislature is 50% female. Any thoughts on why Mexico has leaped ahead despite women not getting the vote there until decades after the US? I mean, like everybody, Germany, the UK, South Korea. I mean, I can go on and on and on and on. The Philippines, I can go on and on for the women leaders. What's the problem here, and how can we fix that?
I wish I knew the answer. The United States runs behind a number of third world countries on women elected. We are far down the list. I know that they say it takes asking a woman 7 times to run for office before they step up and do it. I think that these other countries have more women proportionally that are willing to put their name on the ballot. Why? I don't know the answer. But here in the United States, women are trying to get things right with their job, with their childcare, with their family. They're always waiting for things to line up in the right time before they step up and run for office. So the only thing that I can say is that we have to do a better job of encouraging more women to put themselves out there, to put their name on the ballot. Men go out there in just much higher rate and are willing to put themselves out there in that way. And we all need to find the women we know in our life that have what it takes and ask them to run.
Would they be able to, and I'm sorry, this is not on the copy, but I get to do this because someone wrote Chiapas or Chicapa, whatever it was. But the organization Emerge, a lot of women would like to go through that particular program. It's become so popular and the women are doing so great. But there are a lot of women that would like to run for offices or be campaign managers, but they don't have the money to give to Emerge. So what do we do then?
Okay. We're getting right down to it, aren't we? I want to back up for just a second because there's a couple things I didn't say. That we have 46 women across the Commonwealth that are currently elected. We've trained over 300 women. We like to say from Pikeville to Paducah. I've got some Northern Kentucky women that wanted me to say from Covington down to Franklin Simpson. But we have nearly 50 women on the ballot as of the local filing deadline yesterday. And yes, we do charge tuition to run this 6-month leadership training for these women. What we try to do for people that can't write a check right out the gate for $1,000 is to give payment plans to help them raise their tuition. We give them people to call, which is a huge part of a campaign right now. Unfortunately, to be able to run a successful campaign, you've got to be able to fundraise, right? That's how you get your name out there. That's how you get votes. And so part of that training is who can you call to fundraise for your tuition? And we do everything we can to offset the cost of that because we want women of all backgrounds, of all socioeconomic levels to be able to participate in this training because those are the women we want as candidates, right? We want the people that are like us, that know what it's like to try to have a family and have a job and in all the day-to-day challenges that we're facing to be able to step up and run for office. So we're doing everything we can to recruit in all those areas for our training and to give the women the tools it takes to run. And part of that is helping them to fundraise that tuition, get scholarships and whatever we can. And there's a lot that goes into it. So hopefully that's helpful. And we've got a lot of women in this year's class right now that have been fundraising their tuition. So we don't want to overlook anybody just for that reason.
Great. Thank you, Blair.
Blair, I have one question to ask you, and this sort of I'm not trying to be a Debbie Downer, not by any stretch of the imagination. I know that your organization works primarily exclusively with Democratic women. How do you, in your training, address the larger question of the Republican supermajority in Frankfurt? You know, they have a lock on the state house, a lock on the state Senate, federal offices. You know, they're going to definitely target the governorship in 27. How do you address that as a particular challenge insofar as reducing the number of Republicans in the General Assembly? Because it sounds like y'all got a pretty tall hill to climb.
Dr. Clardy, did you come talk to my class of women in 2023 when we were out there in McCracken County by any chance?
I don't think I did, unfortunately. I wish I could have.
I thought one of our alums brought you over to talk to us, but we, by the way, we have Lauren Hines and Callaway
Yes.
in this year's class that's running for the House out there. And of course, Aaron Marshall, that's running for Congress in that crazy district, is also one of our alums. And we're doing a couple things there. And one, the statistics show that when women run, women win. And that's not about Democrat or Republican, that's women. Okay. And when women get elected, they work well together. They work across party lines to work for the greater good. And it shows that they have done policy change and brought forth laws that just as women, they came together on and united. And so that's something that we can do just as women to work together and break down barriers. And you saw that actually,
Right.
You saw that when we had the legislation happening, when they were taking away the rights of doctors and parents of trans children, right? You saw the Republican women coming together with the Democrats voting against their party to try to keep these laws from being passed. And you saw it with them trying to take away abortion access with no exception. And so there are good statistics that show they can work across party lines. And we get into that only a little bit in our training because we really are focused on the skills it takes to get to run an effective campaign and win. But then the other thing that we do is once you've gone through our 6-month training, then we say you have us for life. And so I do a lot of trainings for our candidates. And that's when we really talk about here's some barriers you're going to be facing. And here's when you get elected, we're still here. And here's some things we can do to try to help you address these issues. And being, the minority party within this supermajority and try to show them any support that we can.
That sounds good. Well, listen, if I'm available to speak to your organization at any time, please feel free to call on me. Anything I can do to help, I'm here. You know where to find me.
I appreciate that. We want all the partners that we can have, and we're always looking for good Democratic men too. And we want them to run, and we want to support them in the way that we can. But we do need more women to step up and run.
Absolutely, yes.
Absolutely, yeah. So thank you, Blair, for joining us. I think what you're doing is so important because what you're helping to do is just build those political networks that I think a lot of, male candidates have been able to tap into kind of almost instinctually, right? The country club, the golf club, whatever, right? You guys are building your own club of, people who are, progressive women who are doing it for the right reasons. And I think as you have more success, you will have more success, right? So you're like the more folks who have positions are going to spawn, I think, better, stronger networks to help more candidates really get to those positions. So I'm thrilled about the work, and obviously, I couldn't take advantage of it, but that's perfect because I don't ever want to run for office. So, but at any rate, any final thoughts that you want to share with our viewers about, the program and how people can help?
Sure. And we call that country club and all that you were talking about the good old boys club, Aaron. And and we didn't have one of those. So we built eMERGE. And I think the other thing is just talking about building the bench. And so we have a lot of focus on local and nonpartisan offices and starting there and then running for higher office. We've had a lot of success, and it's something that I think the Democratic Party needs to continue to focus on as a whole. And we are a nonprofit organization on a small budget, and we need donors just like everybody else that can help these women to offset the cost of their tuition. We will be traveling around the state starting in July with the recruitment tour that we do every year. The class of 2024 graduates in January. 9 of the women in that class are running right now out of a class of 24. And like I said, I have about 50 women that'll be on the ballot in November. And so knocking doors for them, writing checks and helping to get to support their campaigns, and then helping us recruit more women from every area of the state. We really want to focus on those rural areas. Hey, the Democrats aren't just in Lexington and Louisville, and we want to be and reach every part of the state and every type of woman with every type of background, except that you have to be a Democrat and you have to be a woman. So if you know somebody in their community that should step up and run, send them my way. emergeky.org is our website, and you can find my email and cell phone number. We have an outreach coordinator, Emma Pell, that'll be going across the Commonwealth with me. And our applications are open and online starting July 1st, and we'll do interviews in November for the class of 2025.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, Blair. Thanks for the work you're doing, and thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule to join us and share that work. So yeah, have a great rest of your week.
Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome. All right, so now we're going to move on.
In that next class, I'm going to be in that 2025.
That's what I'm talking about.
You heard it here first, folks.
I'm going to be in that class.
You heard it here first, folks. Kimberly
Right.
Jones. She will start her GoFundMe soon, I'm sure. Also, what seat are you going to run for? Where you're just going to get trained up and be ready for the opportunity, or do you know where you're headed?
Well, I'm just going to get trained for the opportunity, and when an opportunity comes to me, I will be ready.
I think that's smart, right? Because you never really know the political landscape, how it's going to shift, what's going to happen, right? Like who's going to retire at what time, and just being ready to go. It's better to do that than like start running and then go, oh God, I really should have done eMERGE.
I'm telling you, it's like a sorority, y'all. They are very, very close. And I like that sisterhood that they have. I like it a lot.
Yeah. Is there a secret handshake, you think? I think there is. I think Blair knows it. I think you'll learn it soon. All right. We're going to move on to our call to action, and then we're going to close out the show. But yeah, who's got the call to action?
That would be me, Aaron. Protect our public schools. Oh my God, this is so important. Launch events happening in Progress, Kentucky is a proud member of the steering committee of Protect Our Schools Kentucky, the joint effort to defeat and ensure public dollars stay in public schools. If you want to find out more, show your support, join a public campaign launch event. Now, we've got one going on in Lexington next Tuesday, which is June the 11th, 5:30 at the East Side Public Library. Then in Louisville, we're going to have one on June the 18th at 6 p.m. Where are you going to go? Is to be determined right now, but it's going to be on the 18th in Louisville. So if you're close by, close in, make sure that you come. Keeping our public schools strong is very, very important to the success of this state, and not only this state, but for the country as we educate our young people. Back to you, Aaron.
Or back to Dr. Clardy. I think Dr. Clardy.
Well, listen, as always, this was an excellent show. I think we had a remarkable conversation, and I want to thank you, Aaron, for hosting, and thank you, Kimberly, for co-hosting, and Nate for the great job that he did in terms of producing this show, and of course, Blair was an outstanding guest. And the work that she's doing in Emerge Kentucky is just simply marvelous. And so I also want to thank our listeners and our viewers for participating and being with us tonight. Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State and organized as a 501c4. We are affiliated with the Indivisible Project and the Commonwealth Alliance for Voter Engagement, or CAVE. And we're also proud members of the Forward Kentucky Network. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. If you're interested in getting involved with Progress Kentucky and are currently looking for 3 new board members to join our leadership team. If you have a passion for a better Kentucky, and we all do, and want to roll up your sleeves and get to work with us, shoot us an email at info@progresskentucky.org. We are especially interested in folks who have knocked on doors, who have made calls for candidates, and who have a commitment to the long-term work of building a new Kentucky majority. Join us next week for another informative show. We will be hosted by Hadley Duvall, a courageous, I dare say a very courageous survivor of sexual abuse, who put her story front and center in the re-election campaign last year, and in so doing made Daniel Cameron own his horrible policies.
Unknown caller.
Another call. Okay, his policies in opposition to a woman's ability to access reproductive health care in Kentucky. Sorry about that, guys. That's the second call I got tonight. Episode 164 was brilliantly produced by Nate. A big thanks to Nate oRSHAN, who wrote and performed our theme song. And for more information, you can find more information at natesongs.com. If you are a weekly viewer on Facebook or YouTube, our audio podcasts are also available, and the show notes are available on Apple and Google and Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And if you ever do listen to the pod, leave us a 5-star review whenever you are listening, and if you're listening right now. Logo and some graphic content provided in the Couch 5 media. More information can be found at couchfire.com. And that's our show for tonight.